The Importance of Living by Ling Yun Tong, Chapter 9, The Enjoyment of Living, Part 1, On Lying in Bed. It seems I'm destined to become a market philosopher, but it can't be helped. Philosophy generally seems to be the science of making simple things difficult to understand, but I can conceive of a philosophy which is the science of making difficult things simple. In spite of names like materialism, humanism, transcendentalism, pluralism, and all the other long-winded isms, I contend that these systems are no deeper than my own philosophy. Life, after all, is made up of eating and sleeping, of meeting and saying goodbye to friends, of reunions and farewell parties, of tears and laughters, of having a haircut once in 2 weeks, of watering a potted flower and watching one's neighbor fall off his roof, and the dressing up of our notions concerning these simple phenomena of life in a kind of academic jargon is nothing but a trick to conceal either an extreme paucity or an extreme vagueness of ideas on the part of the university professors. Philosophy, therefore, has become a science by means of which we begin more and more to understand less and less about ourselves. What the philosophers have succeeded in is this: the more they talk about it, the more confused we become. It is amazing how few people are conscious of the importance of the art of lying in bed, although, actually, in my opinion, 9/10 of the world's most important discoveries, both scientific and philosophical, are come upon when the scientist or the philosopher is curled up in bed at 2 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Some people lie in the daytime and others lie at nighttime. Now by lying, I mean at the same time physical and moral lying, for the two happen to coincide. I find that those people who agree with me in believing in lying in bed as one of the greatest pleasures of life are the honest men, while those who do not believe in lying in bed are liars and actually lie a lot in daytime, morally and physically. Those who lie in the daytime are the moral uplifters, kindergarten teachers, and readers of Aesop's fables, while those who frankly admit with me that a man ought to be consciously cultivate the art of lying in bed are the honest men who prefer to read stories without a moral, like Alice in Wonderland. Now, what is the significance of lying in bed physically and spiritually? Physically, it means to retreat to oneself, shut up from the outside world, when one assumes the physical posture most conducive to rest and peace and contemplation. There is a certain proper and luxurious way of lying in bed. Confucius, that great artist of life, never lay straight in bed, like a corpse, but always curled up on one side. I believe one of the greatest pleasures of life is to curl up one's legs in bed. The posture of the arms is also very important in order to reach the greatest degree of aesthetic pleasure and mental power. I believe the best posture is not lying flat on the bed, but being upholstered with soft pillows at an angle of 30 degrees, with either one arm or both arms placed behind the back of one's head. In this posture, any poet can write immortal poetry, and any philosopher can revolutionize human thought, and any scientist can make epoch-making discoveries. It is amazing how few people are aware of the value of solitude and contemplation. The art of lying in bed means more than physical rest for you. After you have gone through a strenuous day and complete relaxation after all the people you've met and interviewed, all the friends who have tried to crack silly jokes, and all your brothers and sisters who have tried to rectify your behavior and sponsor you into heaven have thoroughly got on your nerves. It is all that I admit. But it is something more. If properly cultivated, it should mean a mental house cleaning. Actually, many businessmen who pride themselves on rushing about in the morning and afternoon and keeping 3 desk telephones busy all the time on their desk never realize that they could make twice the amount of money if they would give themselves 1 hour's solitude awake in bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, or even at 7. What does it matter even if one stays in bed at 8 o'clock? 1,000 times better that he should provide himself with a good tin of cigarettes on his bedside table and take plenty of time to get up from bed and solve all his problems of the day before he brushes his teeth. There, comfortably stretched or curled up in his pajamas, free from the irksome woolen underwear or the irritating belt or suspenders and suffocating collars and heavy leather boots, when his toes are emancipated and have recovered the freedom which they inevitably lose in the daytime, the real business head can think, for only when one's toes are free is his head free, and only when one's head is free is real thinking possible. Thus, in that comfortable position, he can ponder over his achievements and mistakes of yesterday and single out the important, form the trivial in the day's program ahead of him. Better that he arrived at 10 o'clock in his office master of himself than that he should come punctually at 9 or even quarter before to watch over his subordinates like a slave driver, and then hustle about nothing, as the Chinese say. But for the thinker, the inventor, and the man of ideas, laying quietly for an hour in bed accomplishes even more. A writer could get more ideas for his articles or his novel in this posture than he could by sitting doggedly before his desk morning and afternoon. For there, free from telephone calls and well-meaning visitors and the common trivialities of everyday life, he sees life through a glass or a beaded screen, as it were, and a halo of poetic fancy is cast around the world of realities and informs it with a magic beauty. There he sees life not in its rawness, but suddenly transformed into a picture more real than life itself, like the great paintings of Ni Yuanlin or Mi Fei. Now, what actually happens in bed is this. When one is in bed, the muscles are at rest, the circulation becomes smoother and more regular, respiration becomes steadier, and all the optical, auditory, and vasomotor nerves are more or less completely at rest, bringing about a more or less complete physical quietude, and therefore making mental concentration, whether on ideas or on sensations, more absolute. Even in respect to sensations, those of smell or hearing, for example, our senses are the keenest in that moment. All good music should be listened to in the lying condition. Li Liweng said in his essay on willows that one should learn to listen to the birds at dawn when lying in bed. What a world of beauty is waiting for us if we can learn to wake up at dawn and listen to the heavenly concert of the birds. Actually, there is a profusion of bird music in most towns, although I'm sure many residents are not aware of it. For instance, this was what I recorded of the sounds I heard in Shanghai one morning. This morning I woke up at 5 after a very sound sleep and listened to a most gorgeous feast of sounds. What woke me up were the factory whistles of a great variety of pitch and force. After a while I heard a distant clatter of horse hoofs. It must have been cavalry passing down Yunyan Road, and in that quiet dawn it gave me more aesthetic delight than a Brahms symphony. Then came a few early chirps from some kind of birds. I'm sorry I'm not proficient in bird lore, but I enjoyed them all the same. There were other sounds, of course. Some foreigner's boy, presumably after a night of dissipation outside, appeared at about 5:30 and began to knock at someone's back door. A scavenger was then heard sweeping a neighboring alleyway with the swish-swash of his bamboo broom. All of a sudden a wild duck, I suppose, would sail by in the sky, leaving echoes of his "nangtang" in the air. At 6:25 I heard the distant rumble of the engine of the Shanghai-Hangzhou train arriving at the Jesfield station. There were one or two sounds coming from the children in their sleep in the next room. Life then began to stir, and a distant hum of human activities in the near and distant neighborhood gradually increased in volume and intensity. Downstairs in the house itself, the servants had got up too. Windows were being opened, a hook was being placed in position, a slight cough, a soft tread of footsteps, a clanging of cups and saucers, and suddenly the baby cried, "Mama." This was the natural concert I heard that morning in Shanghai. Throughout the whole spring that year, my greatest delight was to listen to a kind of bird, probably called a quail, or partridge in English. Its love call consists of 4 notes: do, mi, re, ti. The re lasting 2 or 3 beats and ending in the middle of a beat, followed by an abrupt staccato ti in the lower octave. It is the song I used to hear in the mountains in the south. The most beautiful part of it was the male bird would start the call on top of a tree about 20 yards from my place, early at dawn, and the female bird would counterpoint it at a distance of about 100 yards. Then once in a while there would be a slight variation, a quickening as it were of tempo and of the bird's heart, and the last staccato note would be left out. The bird song stands out preeminently among those of others, of which there is a great profusion. I am at a loss to describe these songs except by resort to musical notation. I know they include the songs of orioles and magpies and woodpeckers, and the cooing of pigeons. The sparrows seem to wake up later, and the reason, I suppose, must be to our great epicure poet Li Liwang gave it. The other birds have to sing early because they are continually afraid of men's guns and children's stones during the day. These birds, therefore, can sing at ease only before this insufferable human species wake up from their sleep. As soon as men wake up, the birds can never finish their song at ease, but the sparrows can, because they are not afraid, and therefore they can sleep longer.